Hey, my friend, good to see you again. I'm so grateful to be here with you today, to have this time to speak with you. I'm Dr. Lee Warren, hopefully, your favorite internet and maybe real life brain surgeon. And we're going to have a really good talk today because you know what? Have you ever felt like life or somebody, or maybe yourself, has put a label on you? Like you've been identified as being a particular thing? Like maybe you've got a brain that works a certain way. Maybe you have a neurodivergent brain. Maybe you have an anxious brain. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're stuck. Maybe you're broken. Maybe you're abused. Maybe you're recalcitrant. You can hear your dad's voice. Maybe you're overly talkative. Maybe you're headstrong. Maybe you're lazy. What are the labels that we wear? We're sinful. We're broken. We're unforgiven. We're unforgivable. We're unlovable. We're too needy. What are your labels? Well, today we're going to talk about labels. We're going to talk about the way that we develop those labels and what we do about them and whether they're true or not, and how the wearing of such labels and beginning to believe in them is one of the things that limits us in our quest to become healthier and feel better and be happier. We have an incredible author. Her first book is coming out tomorrow when you hear this. Erin Kerry is with us here on the show. She's a coach. She's a writer. She's a brilliant young lady who's been through a lot. Her story is powerful. It's devastating. In fact, if you start out like she did, as she's going to tell you, with a potential sexual assault that ended in a pregnancy that led to a lot of shame. She was a preacher's kid, for crying out loud. She had a lot of labels on her. She was broken. She was this, she was that. And it caused a lot of mental health issues for her. And her story is incredible, and how God redeemed that story, how she now works alongside her husband as a coach, a trauma counselor, this incredible practice that they have together in Tyler, Texas, which is close to where I grew up in southeastern Oklahoma, northeast Texas, that whole Texarkana, Tyler area down there. And it's close to where I grew up, and I'm familiar with that area. I know those people. I got relatives down there. So when I hear her talk, I see and hear some of my own people, my dialect, my language. It was so good to talk to Erin today. And I'm just here to tell you, she's going to give you some tools to live beyond your label. That's the title of her new book. We've got 3 copies of the book to give away, by the way. 3 copies. I'm very grateful to say that you can win one of those copies. Stick around till the very end to hear the instructions on how you can win one of the copies of Erin's book. I'll be back after we have our conversation to tell you all about that. But before we get started, I just want to encourage you, friend. I'm proud of you. It's hard to show up and do the work of changing your mind and changing your life, to take your thoughts captive, to do self-brain surgery, to not accept the labels. It's hard to start trying to peel those labels off after we believe them for so long. They become part of our identity. So how do we live beyond that? That's the work, the holy and good work that we're going to do today with our new friend, Erin Kerry. She's going to help us get that done right now. Friend, we're back. I'm so excited to introduce you to a new friend. I'm excited to be talking today to Erin Kerry, all the way from Tyler, Texas. Welcome, Erin.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Good to have you, and I'm excited about your book coming out. I think you're going to do great things for lots of people. And Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so I am a health coach. That is what I do right now. I'm an integrative health coach. And what that means is that I look at all pieces of the puzzle. I don't just tell people what to eat. A lot of people hear health coach and they're like, oh gosh, you're going to put me on a diet. But I don't just tell people what to eat. I look at all pieces of the puzzle. I look at nutrients themselves. What is the quality of life that you're living? What are your relationships like? What is your relationship with your Heavenly Father like? What is your past history like? I mean, are there any major traumas that are impacting the way that you're functioning right now and living your life? And so I look at all the pieces. So that's the integrative part. And I work at a counseling center, which is really awesome because I share a lot of my clients with counselors who are working through very intense, mostly trauma therapy is what we do here. And so that's been a joy for me. And my passion does come from my pain. I was diagnosed with 3 different mental illnesses myself. By the time I was 18, I was diagnosed with PTSD, I was diagnosed with depression, and then I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, which is a really big, scary sounding disorder in the world of mental health. And typically when we hear that phrase bipolar, we consider it a personality trait, right? Like it's like, oh, the weather's being bipolar, or oh, she's acting bipolar because it's a mood switch. And that's not what it is. For me, it was an intense season of depression and full body fatigue and overwhelm, burnout type of depression, partnered with, right after that, springing into a little bit of hypomania, some increased goal-directed activity. I'm a fast talker anyway. I always have to remember to slow myself down when I'm on a
Yeah.
podcast. But
Regulate.
it
Yeah.
would really rev up if I was feeling a little bit manic, hypomanic. And I think at the root of it, when I look back at my health history, I think there was a lot of neuroinflammation going on, which we could talk about. There was definitely some nervous system dysregulation. And at the root, there was just this imbalance within myself, within my history of trauma that I had no tools to deal with. And then even just there were some personality quirks there that I didn't know how to slow down when I needed to slow down. So I would just completely crash. Could there be a missed diagnosis in there, missed labels of something like ADHD? That's possible too, but that wasn't being diagnosed in the 1990s. So
Right.
I was diagnosed in the fall of 1999, and it was like, oh yeah, you've got manic depressive illness. This is what you're going to struggle with for the rest of your life. I was
Mm.
angry about it. I was angry at God. That took me into a journey of quite a bit of self-destructive activity. I was on some heavy-duty psych meds that made me feel terrible. Excuse me. A lot of those meds just have just kind of a numbing side effect, and I
Yeah.
gained a lot of weight. It made me feel even worse about myself. So then I gave myself labels such as, fat, overwhelmed, unmotivated, always lazy, procrastinating, things like that just became my identity as a result of what I was experiencing mentally, what the meds were making me feel like I was experiencing. And then ultimately that resulted in a pregnancy. My senior year of college, I found myself pregnant with my daughter. And that really that was my wake up call. That was my, oh my goodness, what is happening? I've been going down this path, and now here I am completely mentally unstable at this point, self-destructive, reckless, to the point where I didn't even have a clear memory of the night that she was conceived. And so
Wow.
that stirs up a whole lot too, because there were people who were like, well, you're on these meds, you need to terminate the pregnancy. Or you have, this was an assault situation, you need to put this baby up for adoption. And I didn't feel peace about that. And so I chose to raise my daughter, and that was the
Wow.
most wonderful. I always tell her this. She's 21. She just turned 21. I tell her that you are the first best thing that ever happened to me, truly. Like,
Wow.
she changed my life, and God brought so much. I mean, it's just only God can do things like that, right? Like, bring from
That's
a
right.
really yucky, dark situation, bring some light and healing, not only for me, but my dad was a pastor at the time in East Texas, and had quite a bit of, he was pretty well known in our community, and I was a preacher's daughter who got knocked up, so there's another label on there, right?
Yeah.
So you add to that. But I did receive, this is something that that I don't get to talk about enough, but I did receive so much grace from people at my church. I had maybe 3 or 4 different baby showers. I was involved in a Bible study with
Wow.
women who were, gosh, at least 20 years older than me. And they just surrounded me with encouragement and support. And it was really a healing experience for me. When I
Wow.
was pregnant, my mental health symptoms kind of went into remission, which again makes me wonder if there's some other things going on underneath the surface that were never addressed. But it led me onto a healing journey, and I met my husband a few years later. He adopted my daughter, and now we have 2 other kids together, and he's a trauma therapist, ironically, right? So that's kind of the short end. I was a teacher that was my first career, was teaching, because I wanted to support students. I wanted students to feel seen, because I was the student who was not seen. I was struggling so much with, especially in high school, a lot of depression, and had to put on a face to make it look like I was okay because I was a Christian, right?
Yeah.
Didn't want to show that I was sad, because what if people think that I'm a bad Christian? Oh, it's just there's a lot there that had to be unraveled, and a lot of that, I mean, I would say all of that is in my book for the most part, but that's the short version.
Well, speaking of your book, Live Beyond the Labels, like I love the title. I love the work that you're doing. And I think it would be a great time for us to dive into unpacking your story, because you are exemplifying exactly what you're teaching us. We're in this cultural moment where everybody is told what they are. Like, oh,
Right.
you're a narcissist, you're
Hmm.
ADHD, you have anxiety, and we get all these diagnoses. And I would point out, often by people who aren't really qualified to make those diagnoses, right?
For sure.
We've all become therapists, we've all become
Uh-huh.
diagnosticians, and we
Hmm.
start putting these labels on each other and ourselves. And it's really easy for that to become not just something that we were told we have, but become who we are. So, how did you evolve from believing that all those things were who you were into understanding that they were labels that were put on you? And how did you begin to work your way out of them?
Yeah, it's very complex. There's a lot to unravel there because I think initially when we receive labels that help us make sense of our symptoms, it can be relieving. For
That's right.
me, putting a name to what I was experiencing, even at the time, it being called manic depressive illness, right? It was like,
Yeah.
oh, well, that makes sense because sometimes I'm like really revved up, super happy. And then sometimes I am just in my bed, can't get out. Okay, this makes sense to me. And you're telling me that it's literally something physiologically happening in my body. Okay, that's helpful. Where it becomes limiting is when we do allow, sometimes we can allow those labels to become our identity. And some of that is cultural. We hear how people talk about mental illness, or we hear how other people even talk about their own struggles. Or I think for a lot of time, for me, a big part of it was just learning to deal with emotions in a healthy way. My emotions were pathologized. So if I had a really bad day that for anybody would maybe lead to making you feel kind of down or making you feel kind of tired. My fear was, oh gosh, am I going into a depression? Are they going to have to adjust my meds? Likewise, if I got really excited about something, because I'm a pretty excitable person and
Yeah.
I love life, and I mean, I'm pretty in a pretty good mood, have a lot of good energy most of the time. My fear was, is this turning into hypomania? Is this going to send me down a downward spiral? Are they going to take me to the doctor? And it's like, I felt like my moods were being managed by, and I say this with all my parents, I know I put them through so much. So they did a great job dealing as well as they could, as well as any of us could. But I felt like they were always watching for me to have an episode, or for me to crash, or for me to go off the rails. And that impacted my identity and how I viewed myself. I couldn't trust myself. I couldn't trust my brain. Thought it was always going to be broken. I couldn't trust the ability to filter through emotions. We are human. We are also designed by a God who shares plenty of emotions and feelings in the Bible, all throughout the scripture. We have evidence of, especially Jesus. Jesus felt feelings in a very deep
Yeah.
way. And I felt like I couldn't allow myself to feel feelings because it meant that there was something wrong with me. So for me, that's one aspect of it. The other thing was just I limited myself in that, well, I could never, for a little while, I was like, well, I could never get married because what would this do to a marriage? Or I could never have a career other than being a teacher because teaching is predictable. I have my routine, I have my day to day. And it even limited what I really wanted to do in some ways, which was ironically what I'm doing now, writing. I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to speak to people and share hope, but I thought, gosh, that doesn't feel very routine. And I knew, as somebody who is bipolar, and I hate how we use bipolar as an adjective like that, like, or as a noun almost, like you are bipolar, as opposed
That's the
to you
thing
have
that you are. Yeah.
symptoms. Yeah, you have symptoms of bipolar. But for me, giving that label of bipolar was like, well, gosh, I could never be out of my routine, because that's what they tell us is routine is so important. Sleep is so important. Staying on your medication is so important. You have to stay stable. And that's a good goal for a while. For a lot of people, you need that little bit of stability to see if there's some wiggle room. But it really limited me and just caused me to almost put myself in this pit of, well, this is all there is, and I don't get to dream. And I'm a person who loves to dream. So that's one aspect. I think, labels can also be self assigned, right? Like we have
Yeah.
labels that we're just lazy, unmotivated. Even in this world of self-diagnosing through social media, like there's so many people who it's like, well, I just have ADHD and I can't do that right now. All right. My ADHD is not going to let me concentrate on that right now or whatever. And it's not saying that it's this is valid, right? Like we know that there are neurobiological differences in brains that can change how we function and change how we process information and change how we communicate with other people. That is valid, but it doesn't have to be the thing that causes you to limit what you really truly want to do or what God wants to do in you. I think that's the biggest issue is we
Yeah.
limit what God wants to do in us. And we don't allow for even full vulnerability and transparency in our relationship with him. So
That's right.
that
I think
was,
that's
yeah.
one of the things that I have found to be the most helpful is like rather than sort of believing that you must respond and react to the way that you feel or the way that your emotions want to push you around, you can become aware of them and use them almost as insights into how you tend to respond and then do what the Bible says, taking your thoughts captive, transforming your mind, all those
Yes.
things. And then you can use that as a roadmap for decision making going forward. When I'm
100%.
in this situation, I'm going to tend to react this way. I'm going to tend to feel that thing. I can take command of that and avoid some of those pitfalls and not let the limbic system drive my whole life, right?
Totally. Oh my gosh. And you say that, and it makes me think of what I love to tell a lot of my clients, because many of my clients are believers and they get really mad at themselves for some of the ways they respond to stress, whether it's they're blowing up at their kids, or they're going, and that would be like fight mode, right? Or they're going
Right.
into freeze mode and they're just shutting themselves. And that's more me. Like when I'm feeling overwhelmed, I just want to like cut myself away from everybody and like
That's
sit
right.
down and read and like, get my turtle shell, whatever it is. And a lot of people get mad at themselves for that. But that's really truly as natural to your body as your heart rate changing, your blood pressure changing. It's all part of that autonomic nervous system, your fight, flight, freeze, fawn response. And so
Yeah.
these things that we get mad at ourselves for, they're actually, like you said, they're signals telling us, okay, I'm feeling activated right now. Something is activating me. I can feel it in my body. I can feel it in my emotions. I'm feeling ragey, or I'm feeling whatever it is. Okay, what can I do with this? And have some curiosity instead of, I suck as a Christian, right? Or whatever it
Right,
is. Like,
right.
I'm a terrible Christian. I guess I'm not believing God's word enough because I keep having these reactions like, wait, no, you're having a real response to something. So what's creating that? And how can you, like you said, I mean, it goes back to renewing the mind and taking thoughts captive. How can we kind of veer off into a different path, pay attention, and direct that somewhere else that might be leaning us in more of a direction where we're going to receive the support that we need? Because ultimately those alerts are that we need some support somewhere, somehow, in some way, right?
That's right. I love the sort of training yourself to kind of prove to yourself that you can actually change your responses. Like as a surgeon, we had to be trained to expect something bad to happen and not react to it in a way that would hurt our patient. Right.
For
So like in
sure.
Iraq, we'd be operating, doing brain surgery, and we knew there was going to be a mortar attack. And when the bomb blew up, sometimes it would knock the power out. So the lights would go off.
Oh
No.
my gosh.
If you got your hands down in somebody's brain and you hear an explosion, you go, "Wow!" Like you're going to
Oh,
kill somebody, right? If your
oh,
hands
for
jerk,
sure.
you're going to kill somebody. So you have to train your mind ahead of that event to when this thing occurs, and it's going to occur, then
Yep.
I cannot react in this particular way or I'll make the situation worse. And what that does is it proves to you over time that you can take command of your physiology and of your reactions and all those things, not in a robotic way, but in a God honoring way where you let the Spirit kind of remind you, right, that you've got the
Yeah.
power and the wiring will change in response to what you think about. So at some point you came in your own life to this idea that you didn't have to be a slave to those biological impulses. And unpack that a little bit. What did it start looking like for you as you started to kind of live out? You gave us that acronym in the book, Live. As you
Yep.
started to live that out, how did it start to change for you?
Yeah, I think for me, a big part of that was realizing that I did have a choice and that I wasn't just a victim of my circumstances, or I wasn't helpless. And I felt that way for a long time because when you're managing medication for something, you can feel really helpless because you don't know side effect wise, do I need to change the dosage? And for many people, I mean, it takes years. It took years for me to find the right thing that would make me feel okay for a little while. And,
That's right.
and a big part of my journey into feeling like myself again, because ultimately that's what it was. It's my dad, he's, like I said, he's a pastor. One of my favorite quotes he says is, God takes us where we never want to go to make us who we always want to be, right? And so unfortunately I went through some really yucky things, but I wanted to find myself again. I wanted to find that person that God was renewing on a continual basis, that I knew as a little girl I had a relationship with the Lord that got all twisty at some point and got a little bit broken and ruptured, but it was still there. And so realizing that I had a choice was huge, and that I could choose different behaviors for myself that would help my brain feel better. So for example, the very first thing I did, and these things are going to sound really simple, but it's the simple things that make such a big difference. But the
right.
biggest thing for me, which is a big part of, I have a whole chapter about it in my book, is exercise, movement. My brain feels so good. Like today, I would be off the rails, going on rabbit trails. I would not be focused. I mean, I'm not always super focused in conversations anyways, because like I think of something else to say and I'll interrupt myself, but
Yeah.
I would be so much worse if I had not worked out this morning. I had to go get my workout in because that helps to regulate my brain. And I know that it helps to boost my mood. It helps increase brain derived neurotrophic factors. So I
That's
can make
right.
sure that, right, that all my neurons are wiring and firing the way that they're supposed to be going. And that's a huge part of it. It increases, I mean, when I do strength training, we have the, one of my favorite things to talk about is the myokines, which are the proteins that are created in our muscles
Your
that
muscles.
cross the blood brain barrier, that are the hope molecules that help us feel better. I'm like, what an incredible design that God gave us that we could support our mood through movement. I had no idea when I started exercising. I just thought, well, I've got a daughter. I probably should be healthy for her. I'm going to start exercising.
That's
And
right.
man, I got hooked with how good I felt. And I knew, like, growing up, I was in sports, I played sports, things like that, but I had just let it go for a long time. So that was first. The second thing was nutrition. Nutrition is one of those, we're hearing more and more about the impact on nutrition on mental health and things like that. But for most of my life, I loved the hit that I got from junk food. Give me the donuts, give me the Cheez-Its, give me the fast food, whatever it is. I liked those hyper palatable foods because it was kind of hooking my brain. It was almost
Yeah.
like it was just a substance that would maybe give me some dopamine, maybe give me some serotonin. Who knows? I loved the way I would feel in the short term, but long term, it created a lot of crashes for me, blood sugar wise. And when blood sugar is dysregulated, your nervous system is dysregulated. And that was a huge thing for me, is learning how nutrition played a role. And then processing through, for me, of course, it goes into that deeper healing work of trauma therapy, getting involved in some different small group communities at church that helped me to see that I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only person that ever struggled with these things. I think that I went into isolation a lot about this. I thought, oh, because I'm overachieving firstborn, right? Like I didn't want anyone to see me struggle. And so being in community with other people to go, okay, I'm not alone. These people see me. I've messed up in various ways and they're offering me support. That's huge. Community is a huge part of that. And then I think also just when I met my husband, being in a relationship with somebody who really, like, he would hear even some of the things that I would say about myself, that I was thinking about myself that was negative, and he's like, man, you're really mean to yourself. I thought, oh, am I? I thought that's my inner drill sergeant. Like, that's how I get stuff done. But that inner drill sergeant was a constant bully. And so that was a huge part of retraining the way I talk to myself. Because something that I think is so biblical, but also is backed up in science, is that the way that we communicate from our brain to our body impacts the physiological distress that's happening with our body, that's happening inside of our cells. And so even if we're just frustrated with ourselves, and of course, and we see that there's plenty of studies on even plants, right? If you say mean things to a plant, the plant will die. If you say nice, kind, loving words to a plant, the plant thrives. And it's true for us too. And I had these neural pathways of negativity, like throughout my whole life, they were not for bad reasons. And that's why I want to say, for anybody who's listening, like, none of these things, you didn't do this to be mean to yourself. You didn't like develop behaviors and patterns that were not helpful for you because you didn't want them to be helpful for you. Like, these were protective. So me having an internal drill sergeant was so I could get out of bed in the morning so I wouldn't be late to school or whatever it was, right? But I had to figure out how to put that drill sergeant aside and talk a little bit more kindly to myself. I mean, that's always going to be a work in progress. But those are, I guess, just a few things that really did shape my journey.
Yeah, I love that the movement piece is so important. The first time I heard it applied to spirituality was from Pete Gregg. In one of his books, he talked about how Jesus was always moving. He was always walking or climbing a mountain, or moving from one place, getting down and riding in the dirt. Like when he was under a stressful situation, he would move his body in some way, which, as you said, he knew what was going to happen. Generates BDNF and all these neurochemicals that make you feel better and give you a better ability to say the right thing, make the right decision, move the right way. He was always making his brain better by controlling his mind first. I love that. Let's talk about trauma for a second, because one of the things that I haven't told you, but the audience that's listening today, largely people who have gone through or are going through some kind of major struggle in their life. They've lost a child, they've gone through a divorce, they've gotten the diagnosis of brain tumor, or something's going on in their life that's life or death. And so a lot of the folks listening today are going to relate to your story of trauma and difficulty. And so when you talk in the book about PTSD and about not allowing yourself to feel safe because it kind of feels dangerous to feel safe. Like I related to that so much in my return home from the war. Like when we were in
Yeah.
Iraq, it was constant either you were going to hear a sound and there was going to be a whole bunch of blown up people that you had to take care of, and there was going to be all this mayhem and death and screaming and all that stuff. Or you were going to be attacked. There was going to be a rocket, a mortar, or both oftentimes at the same time. And so then you got to where you would try to take a nap, or you would try to go back to your room for a little while, and as soon as you lay down, something else would happen and you had to get back after it, or you were in danger again, run off to the bunker, put your helmet on. And so you started feeling like I ought to just stay in the hospital and just be ready to work all the time. And then you bring that home, right? You get back
Yeah.
into your normal life and you just don't feel safe anywhere. And so
Yeah.
unpack that for a second. Like how did you process that and figure out that it really is safe to start feeling safe again? How do you get to that place?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, what you're talking about is that hypervigilance, right?
Yeah.
That is so protective. And I think something else, and I'm always going to frame it this way, because when we're talking about something like, let's take autoimmune disease for an example, the phrasing that we usually use is that the body is attacking itself.
Yeah.
And I want to counter that and say the body is protecting you. God designed us so wonderfully that when we've experienced a certain amount of pretty life altering events, the body's going to stay ready for the next one, because it doesn't make sense to go completely back to like chill, calm, collected, because there might be something else that happens. Our bodies are set to prepare to survive. And I do think, sometimes I wonder, but why do they have to protect us so hard? Why do the bodies like the symptoms that we receive? It's like, does it have to be that extreme, God? Like, did you really have to? But it is purposeful, because he did create us all for a purpose, right? And
That's right.
to use even our body, use our bodies, use our experiences, use our how we show up in the world to spread his message of hope and healing, right? And so, but to get there, there's all that yucky stuff in between, which is, what do we do when that trauma is real time hitting us every single day? And how do we create a sense of safety? And so I use quite a few different tools. I think one missing tool with the trauma healing piece that we don't talk about enough is nutrients, is the fact that every time you eat something, carbs, fat, protein, you need to have B vitamins and magnesium to break them down, to use them as fuel for your body. A lot of our food is deficient in B vitamins and magnesium. And then when we're stressed, we get depleted of B vitamins and magnesium. And so we don't make that cellular energy the way we need to. And so the cycle kind of perpetuates. So we still don't feel safe. We're getting food, we're getting nutrients. We're fine. We're at home. There's nothing around that's going to hurt us, but there's still that unsettled feeling. Some of that really can be physiological, that the body still has some imbalances, whether lack of nutrients. It could also be the fact that trauma is still, there are newer studies that show that trauma is not necessarily stored as a memory in the hippocampus the way other memories are stored. It's stored real time. It informs our autobiographical narrative of how we are living out our life every single day. So we can say logically, I'm safe and I'm out of a harmful situation, but I don't know, go to work and your boss says something, and depending on how he says it, or the tone he says it in, or the words he uses, it bumps up against a hurt that you're like, whoo, subconsciously your brain goes, I've heard that before. I don't like that tone. I don't like that word. And now all of a sudden I'm in fight, flight, freeze. And it's really hard to get out of that state once you get in it. And for some people, it's just happening over and over again. And so I love the concept of using the body to support the mind, and using somatic therapies, which would be the nutrition piece, the movement piece, even different. There's so many cool trauma therapies now, like EMDR. Tapping is a great one that you can do at home. Speaking truth over yourself and tapping through different acupressure points can be really helpful. We have a lot of resources like that now. But another thing that was really helpful for me in my journey is learning to breathe. Just learning to take deep, because when we're threatened, right, the breathing changes, and the way the body uses oxygen changes. And so, and again, it's all subconscious. This is all happening as part of that protective autonomic nervous system. We don't know that it's changing. And so for me, really checking in with my breath and going, okay, Am I breathing through my chest, or am I breathing through my belly? Am I taking a deep breath in through my nose? Just shifting breath can make a huge difference in reminding the body that it's safe, because the body is just sending out all these alerts all the time out of protection. But the brain's going, wait, no, I'm fine. I'm safe. I know this is past. And for some people, even the brain is not recognizing that, right? Like we get some terrible dreams. I mean, I know a lot of people that struggle with nightmares and waking up in the middle of the night and just not feeling settled. And so, through this book, I'm hoping that I mean, every single chapter has some kind of a mind body activity to partner with your body, because the other side effect of trauma is dissociation and compartmentalization, and really just checking out of your body and going on autopilot, which is so protective too. I mean, I have I'm better now. As my family, I always check in with them, like, am I zoning out? But I had a huge pattern of zoning out all throughout. I had some early life medical trauma, I think, that maybe caused that to start. It's hard to know because I was so young, but I definitely for sure had a lot of out-of-body experiences growing up. And when you're having that out-of-body, like you don't really feel like you're in your body, you're looking at yourself from outside of yourself, that's dissociation. And that's a protective way that God has created us to be able to not have to endure all the pain of the moment when we're experiencing acute trauma. It's why I think, I mean, you talk about a situation maybe when you're helping somebody in a war type of situation where you're having to spring to action. I mean, there is never more time where you need to go on autopilot than right then, right? And so you've got to kind of be out of body for an experience like that. And I think a lot of people, we do this in the day to day and don't even realize why we're doing it, don't really realize, the purpose for it, but it is purposeful and there's a reason for it. And so I think sometimes even just reconnecting and going, okay, I can choose to be present today. I can be present with my emotions. I can be present with my body. I can partner with my body. I don't have to be mad at it. That can take a few helpful steps forward as well.
That's right. I think there's another layer to that I would always encourage people to take. And it's not just learning the way to operate the system, which is helpful. Not just learning the hack, the movement, the thing, but also then to tie it to another level of convincing yourself that there's something else you can be grateful for in the design. Because if we know that gratitude helps us shift out of that anxiety piece too. So if you're like, well, I'm under all this stress and having all these terrible things happen, and what do I have to be grateful for? Well, one of them is, hey, you've got this design that allows you to take command of your breathing and convince yourself that your physiology will obey and that you really can work yourself out of this situation. So then be grateful for that. And then once you've done that, then you've shifted to this higher order function where you're using mind to say, hey, God's given me all these tools, right? And I can use them. I can pull them out. I can aim them at my problem, and I can work the system. And I think that's one of the values in doing what you've done, kind of creating a system. Like, hey, here's 4 things you can do. And when you get into this situation, unpack these 4 things and use them like a tool, and then be grateful for them, because that gives you another level of mastery, right? Not just survival, but mastery.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I love that. Because I think where I struggled early on is I didn't have resources. I didn't have tools. There were no tools for me. It was like, sleep more, take your meds. That was it. And I think things are changing now and again. Like you said, even at the beginning, we've got a lot of mental health awareness. We have a lot of chronic disease awareness. Like we are aware of the growing rates of all of these things. I mean, what is it? 26% of people will be diagnosed with mental illness, 50% with a chronic disease. So we know that it exists. But what are we doing with that? I think that's where I think as a culture, there needs to be a little bit of a shift to where it's like, yeah, I'm aware. I get it. There's a lot of struggle out there. But what can we do to support our bodies in spite of the struggle? And that does look different for everybody. And that's where, as a coach, it was hard for me to put together strategies in a book, knowing that there are going to be so many people reading it that come from different walks of life. Yeah. And that's hard for me because one of my top spiritual gifts is mercy, probably because of what I've gone through. But I want people to feel truly seen, knowing that trauma is one of those weird things where even like we gaslight ourselves about our trauma, right? Like when I was younger, I was like, I don't have any trauma. Like people watch people die all the time. It's not that traumatic. That was my big trauma when I was 9, but it happens all the time. It happens all over the world. My trauma is not really trauma. I'm fine.
Right.
But it affected my nervous system. It affected my felt sense of safety, and that's valid. And so for the person who's sitting there going, well, I'm not going through anything hard. I don't have any traumas. I'm okay. But does your nervous system feel that? Does your nervous system feel that you're okay? Because what is that? What is your nervous system expressing to you through pain symptoms that you have, through, breath rate changes, through even anxiety flickers, or just little things? Our body will let us know when it doesn't feel safe. And so the question is, how are we tuning in? And what tools are we using to support the body? We need the tools.
That's right. I'm going to get an email from somebody.
Yep.
I know it. It's coming. And somebody's going to say, hey, I heard you and Erin talking about this, and you don't understand that I've been through this exceptional thing, or you don't understand my type of neurodivergence, or it doesn't work for me because X. So coach us up a little bit on that. Like, is there an asterisk that somebody out there can hear us talk about and say, yeah, this will work for everybody except me? And if not, like who encourage people that these kinds of ideas will help them no matter what their X label is.
I think that, yeah, absolutely. Because I think that person was me for a long time. Right. And I think, and that's where, and if that's you, that's okay. Then don't use any tools, don't look for the tools. It's okay. Maybe you just need to be where you are right now. Truly. That's all right. And maybe you just need to sit with that. And I think accepting that maybe not everybody is going to need the same solution, and maybe not everybody's going to be ready to move forward. And that's okay too. And so just finding what is one thing, like if you're listening to this message and you're like, man, I don't know, all that stuff, maybe it sounds a little bit woo-woo, maybe it doesn't really sound like something I can do, or my life situation is so hard. I would say, let's just start with, when you wake up in the morning, I want you to take some deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth, and just lay there in your bed. Just lay there, whether it's dark, if there's a light outside, whatever it is, lay there, look around, orient yourself, take some deep breaths, and ask yourself, how am I waking up feeling today? How am I feeling today? And maybe use a feeling from the feelings wheel. Check in with yourself. Because I think that's the biggest things. We just don't even check in with ourselves. Check in with yourself. How are you feeling? And maybe just start with that. Like that can be one thing you can do, because that's something that a lot of us are not doing. Or maybe ask the question, what's something I can do today that's going to help support a felt sense of safety in my body? What is something I can do today? Maybe it's after work, I get into my car, get ready to go home, and I just sit in my car for a minute and breathe. Like a lot of times I just start with breathing and breathing in transitions. Or maybe before I go to bed at night, I journal and brain dump about the day and just get everything out. Just start with that. I think that I understand, and that this was what's so hard with this message. And even I asked my publishers with the book title, Live Beyond Your Label, I was like, is this going to sound like it's gaslighting people? Is this going to sound like it's telling people that your label doesn't matter? And I don't want it to come across that way. I don't want anybody to think that this message is just, to push them into something that they're not ready for. Because I want you to know, wherever you are, your body's protecting you so hard, because that's what God designed for it to do. So even those negative symptoms, even that depression, if you're experiencing full body fatigue depression, that's one of the hardest things to come out of. And that is a sign that your nervous system is overwhelmed, the threat level is at an all-time high, and your body has chosen to play possum. And that's what it did to protect you from any further threat. Same thing with the intrusive thoughts, the ruminating thoughts. That's another really hard one to break out of. Yeah. It's like just that constant rumination. Okay, what does your body think is a threat right now? Your body thinks everything is a threat right now. And so your body is responding by giving you these thoughts that just don't shut off. And you're up in the middle of the night at 2 a.m, and it's your brain is just going crazy awake with all of these racing thoughts. And so there are a lot of really great tools for that. It's just the first step, I think, is awareness. And even going back to that partnership, like, can you partner with your body with this, or are you just going to be mad at it? And that's okay to be mad. I was mad at it for a while. That's part of grieving, right? Part of the grieving process is is being a little bit mad and getting angry and
That's
then
right.
thinking all the woulda, coulda, shouldas, all those aspects too. That's part of grieving. So maybe you just need to take some time to grieve and grieve what's going. And I have a big section of that too in my chapter on trauma. Is maybe you need to grieve your story. Maybe you don't just need to grieve what happened to you, but you need to grieve the fact that there are things that you'll never, there are memories you never got to make. There are places you never got to go. There are dreams you never got to dream because of what happened to you. And that's sad and that's hard and that is valid. And that is something to grieve. And I would even go into that biblical concept of lament and lament to God. Like, this is hard and I don't understand this. And I wish you could explain it to me. And that's okay too. So I think there's room for all feelings. There's room for all of these wrestling types of seasons that we go through. I do want to offer the hope that I don't believe that it has to be that way forever. I don't. I still, when December comes around, as soon as especially when the time changes, oh man, I start preparing, because I know when the seasons change, when it gets dark, when the days are shorter, I don't like it. My body doesn't like it. I can feel my mood start to drop. So I start preparing. I'm like, okay, what food can I make sure that I'm, meal prepping to have on hand so my blood sugar is regulated? What can I do to make sure that I'm moving my body? What can I do to make sure that I'm checking in with my husband and my friends and my family to make sure that I'm okay? There is an act of preparation that I know now after going through this, so many years, and it really helps me. But I think we have to kind of learn that as we go, especially initially with an initial diagnosis or a big life altering circumstance that's changed.
That's right. And I just think that the hope is that no matter what your situation, what your story, there is a path that you can take where you can get better. And you can feel better, and you can have more hope. And that's what the Bible says. Like you can do all things through Him who gives you strength, right? Like there is a path for you, but you also need to recognize, like you said, Erin, that there's a time to be on that path, and there's also a time to rest, and there's a time to grieve, and there's a time to heal, and all of those things are valid. I talked to Kurt Thompson yesterday, and you probably read his books, but he said that too. Like, don't forget to grieve. Like we lost a son, right? So it's normal for me 12 years later to still be angry about that sometimes and to still be sad about it all the time. Normal. But it's not normal if I was still stuck in my house, unable to get out of bed 12 years later. That wouldn't be normal. There's a time when you need to start moving forward, and that's different for everybody. But the promise is there is a path by which you can move forward. And so get coaching, get help, get therapy, get meds, whatever you need. But bring Christ into it and get the help that you need, because there is hope. There's hope. That's what your story teaches me.
Yeah, I hope that people hear the hope side of things. I think that on the flip side, what I hear a lot of is, well, we just live in a broken world with broken bodies. We're just broken, and it is true. Sin broke us. Sin did break us and continues to just wreck us in so many ways. I think also that there are so many glimmers. The opposite of a trigger is a glimmer, and there are so many glimmers in this life that we can still choose to be grateful for, in spite of the fact that there is brokenness, and that does that changes the way cortisol is produced in the body. Just even having that gratitude you spoke of, or there's a lot of different studies on the emotion awe, AWE, that when you experience awe and wonder. And gosh, that's biblical. That's all through the Psalms, just experiencing wonder over God's works, right? That shifts your stress response. That can even decrease cortisol. It's shown in studies, and it changes the way your brain functions. And I think it's just that we can live in the both and. It can be really hard, and yes, we can live in a world where things break. Things just break. But we also live in bodies that alert us to danger all the time, and we can tune into those bodies and learn to support them so that we can continue forward through our purpose, knowing that even with that brokenness, even with the yuck, there is purpose through the pain. There is purpose that God has us designed for in order to live out that life that He wants us to live. And it's that whole John 10:10, I came so that they would have life and life abundant, right?
Yep.
What does that abundant life look like? It's going to look different for me than it would for somebody else. But that is something that He says, and I have to believe that that's true, that there is abundant life, even in a broken world.
That's right. And that's the reason he said he came. I came so that you could have this
Yeah.
abundant life. Like now, I love that. What do you hope that the reader gets from your book? Like if they take one thing from your book, what do you hope it is?
I think the biggest thing is that they will learn that they are not alone in their symptoms, learn that their body isn't working against them, and that there are things that they can do to feel better. I want them to feel seen, heard, validated. That's exactly what I say about my clients. Like, I want them to sit in my office and feel warmth, right? Because
Yeah.
I felt so what's the opposite of peace? I felt a complete lack of peace for many, many years, to where I felt that the instability was an energy that I was just putting out to the world around me. And I don't say that in a woo-woo way. I just say that we know we have mirror neurons, right? We pick up
Yeah.
on how other people are feeling and experiencing. And I know it's a book and it's not just sitting down with me, but I really hope through my words that you can pick up on some peace and some hope, that it would feel like you're just sitting down with me and we're having a talk and I'm just validating you, because your pain is valid, your racing thoughts are valid, your feelings that are all over the place, the scattered feelings, they are valid, they are real, and a lot of it is purposeful, that your body's trying to get your attention. It's not broken. It's just doing exactly what it's supposed to do. So how do we tune in to partner with it?
Right. I love it. I think you did a great job with the book. I'm excited to say to the listener that we have 3 copies to give away. So I'll give you instructions after we finish with Erin today. I'll give you instructions on how you can win one of her copies of this amazing book. Live Beyond Your Label. Congratulations on the book, Erin. And I pray that you just have incredible success helping lots of people around the world. How can we find out more about you?
Yeah, my website is erinbkerry.com, and my podcast is called Sparking Wholeness, where I think I'm interviewing you pretty soon, which I'm excited
Yeah.
about, hopefully in the new year. But I interview a wide variety of experts, and that has just been a nerdy rabbit hole for me. I've loved it. I've loved talking about all sorts of things on my podcast. Instagram, I'm Sparking Wholeness. My husband has an X account for me right now that he's running for me, which is very nice of him. Spark Wholeness again. And then Facebook, you can follow me just at my name, Erin Kerry, or you can go to Sparking Wholeness as well.
Outstanding. God bless you, friend. We're so grateful for you and the work that you're doing. I know that you're going to help a lot of people with this book. It's coming out soon. We're going to release this episode the day before your book launch. So God bless
Yay.
and good luck and keep it up.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This was so much fun.
What a great talk. I hope you enjoyed that with Erin. If you want to win one of the 3 copies that the publisher has so kindly given us to give away, we're going to draw the names 48 hours after this episode launches. Lauren from our staff is going to be picking those winners. So if you want to be included in that, send us an email to contact@drleewarren.com, contact@drleewarren.com, and we'll put you in the drawing. Make sure that in the email you send us your name, your mailing address, and your zip code. We can't take P.O. boxes. We can't ship to outside the United States. It's quite expensive to do that. So the publisher, at their expense, is giving us these books. So please, name, address, zip code, no P.O. boxes, no foreign addresses, just U.S. addresses. And so if you're interested in a copy of Erin Kerry's incredible book, Live Beyond Your Label, today's the day you can potentially win a free copy. Even if you don't win one of the free copies of it, I encourage you to follow Erin. Go to her website, read the book, check it out. It's really going to help you. Friend, I don't want you to be stuck believing the lies, believing the labels, letting other people, outside events, circumstances define who you are. Because you've been defined long before you were born. Your worth and your value are not dependent on the things that have happened to you. And the neuroscience is on your side. You can change. You can change how you see yourself. You can change how you project yourself into the world. You can change how you relate to other people. You can unwind old traumas. You can heal. You can move forward. You can become the person that you're supposed to be, regardless of what you've been through and regardless of how long you've been believing those old, untrue labels. Friend, I'm grateful for you. I'm excited for you. I'm proud of you. Don't forget to sign up for the newsletter, drleewarren.substack.com, or on my website, drleewarren.com. You get all the blogs, the newsletters, the podcasts, everything we're doing out there, including information about my upcoming book, The Life-Changing Art of Self-Brain Surgery, which is available for pre-order now wherever you get books. We're going to have a pre-order campaign pretty soon. So if you do pre-order the book now, just hold on to your receipt or your proof of purchase or your email or wherever you bought it, because once we announce these pre-order bonuses, I want to make sure you get them. So we're going to ask you to send those to us, and we'll give you some good stuff in exchange for you pre-ordering the book. It's really going to help us. So make sure you're listening, subscribing to YouTube, subscribing wherever you listen to podcasts. Listen, we're going to be back with some more great stuff. We got all kinds of great things and great guests coming for you. Don't forget, friend, every Sunday you can get the newsletter and we'll help you change your mind and change your life. And the good news is you can start today.